That's the thing about life. You think you know how the day will go until everything fractures in one heartbeat. My name is Aaron Pierce, 34 years old, a structural engineer in Boulder, Colorado. For the past decade, I built bridges and towers meant to last lifetimes. Turns out I should have been paying more attention to the fault lines in my own life. It happened on a sharp November morning. I walked out of Boulder General with a diagnosis that felt like someone had flipped gravity upside down. Stage 2 leukemia. Treatable, yes. Survivable, the doctors said. But I'd need a long, grinding road of treatment ahead. I remember holding the white paper folder with my blood work like it weighed 50 pounds. The first person I called was my wife, Natalie. We'd been together for 10 years, married for 7. She worked as a paralegal downtown, organized, composed, always in control. When she picked up, her voice was cool and clipped. "What's up, Aaron? I'm heading into a meeting." "I need you to come home. It's serious," I told her. There was a pause. "I'm busy right now. We'll talk tonight." I stared at my phone, stunned. That wasn't Natalie. Not the Natalie I knew, or thought I knew. By the time I got back to our apartment, my gut already told me something was wrong, but I wasn't ready for what I found. The closet half empty, the wedding photos stripped from the walls, her favorite coat missing from the hook by the door. I thought maybe she was just upset until my phone buzzed with a text. "I can't do this. I transferred what's mine. I hope you understand." Attached was a screenshot. Our joint account balance, 0. $72,000. 10 years of careful saving, gone. For a full minute, I stood there in the middle of our empty living room. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just typed back 2 words. "Be well." Then I walked onto the balcony, sat down with a beer, and stared out at the Rockies as the sky burned orange with sunset. That's when I realized my life wasn't ending. It was splitting clean in 2. Before Natalie, after Natalie. One chapter closed, a harder one beginning.
After sitting there on that balcony for what felt like an entire evening, I made myself stand up. My legs felt heavy, like I'd been carrying bricks, but I knew what I had to do. The first call I made wasn't to my mom or my sister. It was to my uncle, David. David was the one who helped me set up my estate documents when I bought this apartment. Former financial advisor, now semi-retired, still sharp as hell. When he answered, I didn't waste time. "Uncle David, I need to update my paperwork." There was a pause. "Everything okay, Aaron?" "No," I said, "but it will be." I grabbed my lockbox from the closet, the one with all my property deeds, savings account info, and the title to my motorcycle. Natalie had always joked I was too cautious, too organized. I guess today that caution paid off. By midnight, I'd frozen every account I could, logged into online banking, made sure the apartment mortgage was still in my name only, checked my retirement accounts, and that's when I spotted it. Natalie had left one account untouched, a small investment portfolio in both our names, tucked away with barely $5,000 in it. Either she'd forgotten or she didn't care. At that moment, I didn't feel bitterness, just clarity. I'd built my life around stability, around structures that lasted, and Natalie had just proven that not all things were meant to last. The next morning, I checked myself into Boulder Oncology for my first treatment session. Walked in with my own paperwork, medical insurance cards in hand, sat down in the waiting room alone, surrounded by couples and families. I watched them out of the corner of my eye. A wife holding her husband's hand, a son helping his dad fill out forms. And there I was, alone. When the nurse called my name, she asked, Your ride's outside? I took an Uber, I said. She gave me that same look people do when they know you're lying, but they don't press. After the IV was in my arm, pumping me full of the first round of chemo, I pulled out my phone and texted my sister Claire in San Diego. Told her everything. The diagnosis, Natalie, the money. Her reply came fast. Aaron, I'm booking a flight. I'll be there tomorrow. I texted back, give me a few days. I need to get my head straight first. I spent the rest of the session watching drip bags empty, listening to soft murmurs of the other patients. It hit me how strange it was that life could get this quiet while you were fighting for it. That night, back at my apartment, I found myself opening our wedding album. I didn't do it to punish myself. I just wanted to see if I'd missed the signs, the distant looks, the quiet contempt. Maybe I had. Or maybe people just change when they think life is about to get hard. The next morning, I got a call from Natalie's cousin, Rachel. We weren't close, but she'd always been kind. Her voice was soft when she said, Aaron, I heard about the diagnosis, about Natalie. I don't know what she's thinking, but I want you to know some of us don't agree with what she's done. Does she know yet about the cancer? Yes, she told the family, said she couldn't handle it. That phrase, couldn't handle it. I thanked Rachel, hung up, and poured myself a cup of black coffee. No sugar, no cream. I didn't have the stomach for anything sweet. That afternoon, I met with David in person. Brought every document I had, from title deeds to bank statements. I told him she drained the joint account within hours before she even knew the full details. He shook his head. That's not just cold, that's probably illegal. Can I prove she knew? He flipped through my phone, found the text. Yeah, he said grimly. That'll do. We spent the next 4 hours drawing up new paperwork, removing Natalie from every shared asset, closing joint accounts, setting up a new trust account for medical expenses. By the time I walked out of David's office, it was dark again. Boulder's mountains were backlit by a faint glow of city lights. I walked home instead of taking a cab, feeling the cold in my lungs like it was cleaning me out. That night, I received a letter from Natalie's attorney. She was filing for divorce. Cited irreconcilable differences, requested to be removed from the mortgage, but wanted half the apartment's value. No mention of the savings she had taken, no mention of my illness. I stared at the letter for a full 10 minutes. Then I picked up my phone and called David. She wants half the apartment, I said quietly. He laughed. Of course she does. Don't worry, Aaron. We'll handle it. For the first time since my diagnosis, I felt something close to peace. Maybe not happiness, but a quiet, steady resolve. By the third week of chemotherapy, I was running on autopilot. Wake up, drink enough water to keep the nausea in check, drive myself to Boulder Oncology, endure the hours of IV drips, and home again to collapse into bed. Every evening felt heavier than the last, but on a Wednesday, my phone buzzed with a new number flashing across the screen. I almost didn't answer. I should have let it go to voicemail. Instead, I picked up and heard, Mr. Archer, this is Peter Lanning, attorney for Mrs. Natalie Archer. My stomach tightened like I'd been punched. Go on. We're serving you with formal divorce proceedings. Mrs. Archer is seeking equitable distribution, including her share of all marital assets, the apartment, the savings, and the cabin property outside Lyons.
I didn't say anything for a full 10 seconds. Finally, I managed, "Her share?" "Yes," he said smoothly, like it wasn't utterly ridiculous. "If you'd prefer, we can arrange a settlement conference to avoid litigation." I ended the call without another word. For a moment, I just sat on my couch, staring at the wall. My hair had started falling out in clumps that morning. My body felt like a hollowed-out shell. And now Natalie wanted half the cabin? That's when something in me snapped. Rage wasn't even the right word for it. It wasn't loud. It was cold, measured. Because the truth was, Natalie's name had never been on the cabin title. When my grandfather left it to me, I'd never bothered adding her. David had advised against it just in case. And now, that caution felt like the smartest decision I ever made. I called David immediately. "She's making a move, wants half the cabin." He said, "Let her try. Her name's not on it." Still, it wasn't just the cabin. Over the next week, I started noticing things, small, sharp signs that something was happening behind the scenes. A text from my investment bank flagged an unusual login attempt from a device I didn't recognize. An email from my credit card company about a new application I hadn't submitted. At first, I chalked it up to random fraud. But the pattern was too specific. It wasn't some teenager in a basement trying to steal my identity. It was Natalie. Or someone working on her behalf. Maybe her father. David and I set up a new meeting the following Saturday in his office. He was already waiting when I walked in, files and coffee on the table. I sat down. "We can't just wait for them to make another move. We have to get ahead of this." David nodded. "I agree. We need to throw them off. Give them something they think is valuable. Bait." So that's what we did. David and I devised a plan using what he called public breadcrumbs. We would feed Natalie and her circle misinformation through channels that seemed legitimate but weren't directly tied to me. I created a profile on a local real estate forum under a pseudonym, Aaron M. Colorado. Nothing flashy, just a quiet user posting in threads about mountain property sales. 2 days later, I posted something deliberate. "Thinking about selling my family's cabin near Lyons. Inheriting it was unexpected. Medical bills piling up. Might have to let it go." I left the location details vague enough that it wouldn't raise red flags to strangers, but specific enough that Natalie's lawyer could connect the dots if they were monitoring me, which I knew they were. Within 48 hours, I saw what I expected. A for sale inquiry submitted to the county records office, searching title details for my cabin. But it wasn't in my name. It was filed under Natalie's father's LLC. That was it. Proof they were watching me. Proof they were acting. But I didn't get angry anymore. I just filed everything away, screenshot by screenshot. By now, chemotherapy had taken its toll. My energy was shot. I could barely stand for long stretches, but that quiet resolve never left me. And here's the thing. When people underestimate you, especially when they think you're too sick to fight back, that's when you have the most power. I wasn't out for revenge. I just wanted the truth laid bare in a way no one could ignore.
By the end of the second month, it was no longer just about recovering what Natalie had taken. It was about clearing my name and drawing a firm line between who I had been and who I was now. The bait David and I had laid worked exactly as we planned. Less than a week after I posted that fake inquiry about selling the cabin, Natalie's lawyer sent over a new set of demands, specifically requesting a share of the anticipated proceeds from the cabin sale. That email felt like the final piece I'd been waiting for. I met with David and Catherine Chen, the real estate lawyer, the next morning. We sat in David's office, the late autumn light slanting in through the blinds. Catherine laid out the formal response draft in front of me. "Now's the time," she said. "We lay everything on the table." "Let's do it," I said quietly, feeling that calm weight settle over me again. David nodded and sent the email. "Please be advised that the cabin property in Lyons, Colorado, is not and has never been considered marital property. Attached are title records, dated both before and after Mr. Archer's marriage, confirming sole ownership." The next part was even sharper. Alongside the title records, we attached evidence of Natalie's withdrawal of funds during my medical crisis, the text message she'd sent about not signing up for this, and the bank logs showing she'd tried to alter account access without my consent. Megan's message was there too, time-stamped, showing that Natalie had known about my diagnosis before making her financial moves. I wasn't just responding anymore. I was filing my own countersuit. Catherine had drafted it under grounds of abandonment, during a documented medical crisis, fraudulent financial behavior, and attempted concealment of marital assets. According to her, it wasn't just a civil matter. It bordered on financial abuse, and Colorado courts took that very seriously. By the time we filed, I was physically exhausted, but mentally clearer than I'd been in months. Chemotherapy had taken away my strength, my hair, my appetite, but it hadn't touched my resolve. And then came the meeting that solidified everything. A pre-trial conference was scheduled at Catherine's office with both legal teams present. Natalie arrived with her lawyer and her father, same as before, looking polished and perfectly composed. But when they saw the folder sitting on the conference table, the one marked "Evidence" in block letters, I watched Natalie's face falter for the first time. Catherine didn't waste time. "As we've made clear," she said, voice firm and professional, "Mr. Archer is not interested in a settlement because there is no equitable division to be discussed. We are pursuing full restitution of the $38,000 withdrawn, as well as an official relinquishment of all claims to the marital property, including but not limited to the house, the Mustang, and the cabin." Her father leaned forward, voice low and calculated. "There must be a middle ground." "That's the middle ground. Otherwise, we proceed with formal litigation. Your daughter's actions, including transferring joint funds immediately following a documented cancer diagnosis, will be a matter of public record." That's when Natalie's lawyer asked for a private sidebar with her and her father. David leaned toward me as they huddled in the hallway. "Are you feeling all right?" "I'm tired, but steady." When they returned 10 minutes later, Natalie didn't sit down. She just stared at me, with an expression I couldn't quite read. Half anger, half something else. Regret, maybe? Or resignation? Her lawyer cleared his throat. "My client is prepared to accept your terms." I didn't react. Didn't even let out a breath. I just sat still as David shook hands with Catherine and confirmed the agreement. Natalie would return every cent. She would sign over all claims to the house, the Mustang, and the cabin. No alimony. No further demands. After they left, Catherine looked at me and asked, "How do you feel?" I thought about it honestly. "Relieved," I said after a moment. "Not happy, just done." That night, I sat on my deck again. My energy was still low, but my heart felt quieter. I wasn't looking over my shoulder anymore. I wasn't thinking about court dates or text messages. I was thinking about the cabin, about rebuilding, about peace.
6 months had passed since the settlement was finalized. I'd moved into the cabin outside Lyons full-time, turning it into more than just a quiet escape. It was my home now. The first snow had come early that year,
frosting the evergreens that surrounded the property and blanketing the roof in clean, white silence. Life had slowed in all the ways I needed it to. Chemotherapy was behind me. The scans kept coming back clear. I wasn't naive enough to think it was over forever. Remission wasn't the same as a cure, but every day I spent waking up in that cabin, chopping wood or fixing small things around the property, felt like its own quiet victory. Mia had been a big part of that new rhythm. She and her kids had started visiting most weekends, driving up from Boulder. She'd been my sister Ellie's old college friend, someone I hadn't seen in years until Ellie reconnected us after hearing about everything that had happened. Mia had lost her husband 3 years earlier to a car accident. Her 2 boys, 7 and 9, filled the cabin with the kind of noise and energy I hadn't realized I'd missed. That weekend, we were all gathered in the kitchen. I was teaching the boys how to make pancakes the way my mom used to, while Mia stood by the window, looking out at the snow-covered trees. "You sure you're okay with all this?" she asked, quietly, glancing over her shoulder. "We kind of take over your weekends." "I wouldn't have it any other way," I said, flipping a pancake. And I meant it. For the first time in years, there wasn't a single part of my life that felt like it belonged to someone else's story. The house, the Mustang in the garage, the land around the cabin, all of it was mine, both on paper and in my heart. That evening, after Mia and the boys had left, I sat by the fireplace with a mug of tea, scrolling through old messages I hadn't bothered to delete. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. It was more like I needed to take stock of everything before I let it go for good. That's when her name popped up again. Natalie. A text message. Simple, quiet. "I heard you're doing better. I regret everything. I wasn't strong enough." I stared at the words for a long moment. There was no anger in me anymore. No bitterness. Just finality. I typed back, "I survived. You take care." And then, with deliberate calm, I deleted the thread. Blocked the number, set the phone face down on the table. The fire crackled quietly behind me. The wind rustled against the window panes. I stood up, walked over to the sliding glass doors that opened onto the back deck. Stepping outside, I felt the cold air bite against my skin, but it didn't bother me. I was alive. I was standing on my own 2 feet, not defined by cancer, not defined by betrayal. I was just me. I didn't need Natalie's regret. I didn't need her apology. My life was already moving forward, quietly, steadily, surrounded by the things and people that mattered. That was my real victory. Not the legal settlement, not the cabin, but the fact that I could stand there, watching the snow fall in silence, and feel whole again. That final winter in Leon's felt like both an end and a beginning. I wasn't the same man who'd first sat alone on that deck, holding a text message that had shattered everything I thought I knew. That man had been exhausted, defeated, wondering how much more life could take from him. But life doesn't just take. Sometimes it offers the chance to rebuild. Not the same as before, but stronger, clearer, with better foundations. By then, the cabin was fully mine. The Mustang sat in the garage, fully restored, not to sell, but just because I could. My health had stabilized. My sister Ellie visited every few weeks, still insisting on bringing home-cooked meals. Mia and her boys became not just weekend visitors, but part of the fabric of my life. I kept looking back to everything that had happened, Natalie's betrayal, the courtroom battles, the quiet afternoons spent between chemotherapy sessions, and I realized something simple but important. Pain is inevitable, but so is growth. You can let the worst moments define you, or you can let them refine you. It's not about avoiding storms. It's about learning how to build better shelter. Even as the snow fell heavy outside, I wasn't weighed down by old anger. I didn't carry resentment toward Natalie anymore. What she did couldn't be undone, but it also didn't control my future. That was mine to decide. Every quiet morning in the cabin, every call from Ellie, every project I took on at Joel's shop, they were small choices in a new life I'd earned. Not given, earned. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone listening now, it's this. When life takes everything from you, it's not the end. It's the start of whatever you choose to build next. Trust yourself. Trust the people who show up when things get hard, not the ones who vanish. And don't let fear or betrayal stop you from moving forward. If my story resonated with you, I love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Share your own stories about starting over, about choosing yourself, about quiet victories that no one else may notice, but matter all the same. And if you want more real, honest stories like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We share new chapters every week, stories that remind us life's not perfect, but it's always worth fighting for.